Today we are gonna edit this photo. I made this photo in Croatia, where I was a few weeks ago. Amazing country, it was the first time I was there, but I really love the country. And this photo was taken in the national park Krka, and maybe I pronounce it in the wrong way, but I believe it's pronounced like Krka, and they have beautiful waterfalls over there. So I went there for a day tour, and it was high season, so it's not the best period for photography, because down here, down the waterfalls, is also possible to swim, so there are a lot of tourists. Well, in this part, close to the waterfall, it's not allowed to swim, so I was able to take a nice photo, and I brought my tripod, 10 stops and D-filter for the long exposure, and well, this is the result. And it's not perfect, but we can make it very nice, and in the end it will be like this, so that's much better. So as you can see, the photo is underexposed. That's not a good thing, but we can correct it easily. It would have been better if the shutter speed was about 10 seconds, but longer exposures, it is very nice for the water. But on the other side, if you see all those trees, they're also moving, and especially here you can already see it, that it's not very sharp anymore because it moves. Also here, this part. So the longer the exposure is, the more fuzzy it gets in the trees also. So I think 5 seconds was good for this photo. The only result is it's slightly underexposed. Well, the exposure, we put it a little bit in a plus, and we basically solved the problem directly. And well, I will show you my whole process, what I did with this photo. For the highlights, as you can see, there are no highlights right now, but on your other side, if you lower the highlights, so in minus, you can get a little bit more detail in the brightest areas. So for that reason, I do about minus 30. There are no underexposed parts anymore. I always use the whites and the blacks to stretch the histogram, and usually the contrast gets a little bit better. So I press the Alt button to see when I get some white pixels, so that's until here, and I do the same for the blacks, like this. So it already looks much better. I even think I can increase this a little bit more, because then you really get the fresh green colors here of the trees, and that's what I really like. And I took this photo with my Fuji camera, and well, especially those green colors, they're always amazing with Fujifilm, so that's very nice. Alright, well, I don't do much more in Lightroom, because I'm going to use Color Efex Pro. The first thing I want to do before I go to Color Efex Pro, by default sharpening is applied 25%. I prefer to put it to 0 and add sharpening at the latest step. So first I go to Color Efex Pro, and unfortunately they don't develop Color Efex Pro and the other plugins of NIK Collection anymore, but I'm still using it, mainly because of the Pro contrast filter. I think it's a very powerful filter of Color Efex Pro, and I really hope Color Efex Pro is going to work the upcoming years also, but that really depends on Adobe if they want to support those plugins or not. What I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna use mainly the dynamic contrast, because that does a lot to the photo, as you can see. So I put it around 50. I'm only checking what this does. As you can see, the colors turn a little bit more, a little bit more natural, so let's put it around 30. This one, I think 50 is too much, because also the water gets a little bit too harsh, so let's do it a little bit lower. So that's basically the only thing I do here. I press save and go back to Lightroom to finish the photo, and I want to do one trick. Overall, I like the colors in the trees. I don't like the color of the water. I want to make it a little bit more bluish, and because of that you create a color contrast between the green and warm tones and the blue, and that always works very well in photos. So for that, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use the brush, because this is basically the only way I can make very local adjustments. And maybe I want to make the water here in the foreground a little bit more brighter. Let's start with that. So the brush is already in, plus exposure. Make sure auto mask is off, because otherwise it doesn't work nicely. So you see we get a little bit of a problem here, and also there. Well, we're gonna fix that later. I just want to make some parts a little bit brighter. What we can do is the highlights, we can put it in minus to get the highlights back in those parts. So this is basically all I do with the exposure in the water itself. Then I take a new brush, and for this one I work with the white balance. And I don't know how much I'm gonna do it. I do it too much now, so minus 30, so I can clearly see what I'm doing. And basically I just paint over all the water, and I also hit the rocks a little bit, but we can fix that later if it doesn't look nice. So far you don't see much, but as you can see, you can really make the water blue if you want. Well, we're not gonna do that too much. Add a little bit of magenta. The highlights are a problem again, so we put it in minus, so it disappears. Maybe a little bit more blue. So the difference with and without the adjustment brush is this. So now you can clearly see what I meant with the color contrast. Here you can see there are a lot of warm tones in the water. Now basically they disappeared, and the water looks way nicer, also more natural, I think. So that's the thing I wanted to achieve with this adjustment. Maybe I can do it even a little bit more, because I really like the bluish. Yes, like this. Alright, well, what else can we do? I always like to work with vignette. Not too much, just like this. And I think we are basically there. I really like the photo. I like the colors better. Maybe we can even add some saturation in the green and orange. I think that's possible. Well, only the yellow and the green. Yeah, the green a little bit, but maybe we can crank that up a little bit more. I think that does a very good job. It makes the photo more colorful, and on the other hand, the color contrast between the trees and the water even gets bigger because of this. Maybe we can play a little bit with the luminance also. Oh, that's very nice also. As you can see, the yellow parts basically here, they get brighter. On the other hand, the darker parts in the trees, they don't change. So now you even get a little bit more of depth in the trees, so that does a very good job also. Let's see what happens with the green. The green mainly has an effect on the trees here in the back. It makes them brighter also. So basically the green is more in the back, the yellow is more around the water. And if I do this, I make everything more bright. So then the contrast between the trees in the back and everything here in the foreground decreases. So that's not what I like. I always like to work with color contrast, but also contrast in the light. So it's very nice that the part in the front is bright and the part in the back is a little bit darker, because that also creates a little bit of depth. Alright, so I think we're there, and I really like the result, and I can recommend you to go there if you go to Croatia. So Krka National Park, a lot of waterfalls, and this is maybe the biggest one, I'm not sure actually, but it's one of the nicest ones at least. But I recommend you not to go in high season, but maybe autumn is very nice if the trees are gonna change from color. So check it out, and hopefully you learned something new from this tutorial, and soon I will post a new video. Keep in touch.